I used to think that anyone who took the time to listen to me was a good friend, but I have learned the hard way. Not everyone who listens is listening out of care. Some people listen just to figure out where you are weak. Then they use your own words against you. I did not see it at first. All I knew was that every time I left a conversation with them, I felt more drained than before I came. Have you ever felt that? Like you are always walking on eggshells with someone who's supposed to be your closest friend? If you have, this video is for you. Today I will walk you through 4 key differences between a true friend and a toxic one. And maybe, just maybe, you will finally start hearing the voice inside you that already knows the truth. Not all friendships are the same. Some breathe life into you, others slowly chip away at who you are. And sometimes you do not even notice it is happening until the damage is already deep. I used to believe that as long as someone stayed in my life, that meant they cared. But I have come to learn that proximity does not equal safety. The difference between a healthy friendship and a toxic one is not always loud or obvious. Sometimes it is quiet, subtle, and incredibly confusing. Let me tell you about Jame. She is someone who shows up with warmth, with empathy. When I am around her, I feel like I can exhale. She listens without judgment. She remembers the things I say. She gives me space to feel without rushing me to be okay. Being around her is like walking into sunlight after being in a dark room. She never asks for more than I can give. And even in silence, I feel safe. But then there was someone else. A friend I once considered close. I will not name them, but the impact they had on me was undeniable. Conversations with them left me exhausted. I found myself overthinking every word I said. I began to second-guess my memory. Did I say something wrong? Did I react the wrong way? When I felt hurt and tried to express it, they told me I was being too sensitive, that I was imagining things, and over time I started to believe it. That is the thing about emotional manipulation. It is not always loud. Sometimes it comes dressed as concern, sometimes it sounds like a joke, but it chips away at your sense of self. I began to feel like I had to earn their approval every day, that if I disappointed them even by accident, I might lose the friendship entirely. My anxiety spiked before every conversation. I began apologizing for things I didn't even do. I convinced myself I was the problem. Psychologically, being in a toxic friendship activates the same threat responses in the brain that we experience in emotionally unsafe environments. Your cortisol levels rise. Your body enters chronic stress. Your brain becomes hypervigilant, always scanning for signs that something is wrong. And that constant activation drains your energy, impairs memory, and makes emotional regulation harder. You might even start to lose trust in your own judgment. In contrast, a healthy friendship like the one I have with Jame regulates your nervous system. It creates psychological safety. It teaches your brain that it's okay to rest, that you do not have to be on guard all the time. And in that space, you begin to grow again. You think clearly, you feel stable. You reconnect with the version of you that does not have to perform to be accepted. Looking back, I realize now that the pain I felt in that toxic friendship was not weakness, it was wisdom. It was my body trying to tell me that something was not right, that I deserved better. And maybe if you are feeling constantly tense, confused, or depleted by someone in your life, that same wisdom is already speaking to you too. The difference between a good friend and a toxic one does not just lie in what they say, it lies in how your body responds to them. A good friend calms your nervous system. A toxic one puts it on edge. And the science behind this is powerful. Our brains are wired for connection, but they are also wired to detect threat. When we are with someone who is safe, our parasympathetic nervous system activates. That is the system responsible for rest, recovery, and healing. Our breath deepens, our muscles relax, we feel at ease being ourselves. But when we are with someone unpredictable, emotionally unsafe, or manipulative, the opposite happens. Our sympathetic nervous system takes over, our heart rate speeds up, our shoulders tighten, we brace ourselves even if we are smiling on the outside. That state of chronic vigilance is not sustainable. Over time, it wears down our emotional resilience. It makes it harder to think clearly. It impairs memory. Neuroscientific research has shown that uncontrollable stress doesn't just feel bad, it changes the brain. Human and animal studies demonstrate that chronic stress impairs hippocampal-dependent memory tasks and even reduces the volume of the hippocampus PMC, .ncba.nlm.nih.gov. The hippocampus is the region involved in forming new memories, so prolonged exposure to toxic dynamics literally shrinks your capacity to remember and learn. Conversely, psychology tells us that positive social connections nourish the brain. Meta-analyses report that poor social engagement is associated with a significantly increased risk of Alzheimer's disease and related dementias, whereas a good social engagement reduces that risk. PMC.ncbi.nlm.ai.gov. Living with others, maintaining frequent contact with family and friends, and engaging in weekly community activities predicts slower memory decline. ncbi.nlm.nih.gov. Harvard researchers even note that people with the highest levels of social connectedness score better on cognitive tests and experience up to 70% less cognitive decline compared with those with low social activity. Health@harvard.edu. They explain that socializing engages all of our senses and forces our brains to process facial expressions, body language, and tone of voice, thereby strengthening existing neural connections and creating new ones. Health, Harvard.edu. Healthy friendships literally help our brains grow. I did not know this the first time I was gaslit by a friend. I thought I was just being dramatic, but the pattern kept repeating. They would say something hurtful, then deny it happened, or say I misunderstood them. Gaslighting is not just a buzzword. Psychologists define it as an insidious form of manipulation that feeds victims false information until they question their own memory perception and even sanity. Over time, victims experience increasing self-doubt and confusion. That is one of the most damaging parts of a toxic friendship. It does not just hurt you, it rewires how you see yourself. A good friend, on the other hand, reinforces your reality. If you tell them something made you feel small, they do not dismiss you. They lean in. They try to understand. They might not always say the perfect thing, but they validate your experience. And that validation restores your sense of safety. Your brain stops scanning for danger. You can be vulnerable without fear or punishment. Toxic friends often operate from ego and fear. They fear losing control, so they manipulate. They need to feel superior, so they invalidate. They lack emotional awareness, so they blame instead of take responsibility. You will notice this pattern. When something goes wrong, it is never their fault, and if you bring it up, they shift the blame back to you. Over time, this erodes your confidence. You begin to anticipate guilt. You stay silent to avoid conflict. In contrast, a good friend is emotionally responsible. They take ownership when they mess up. They apologize without making you feel like the problem. They do not weaponize your vulnerability. Instead, they protect it. And this is what sets them apart. Not perfection, but presence. Emotional safety is not about someone always getting it right. It is about someone caring enough to try. What I have learned is this. The presence of anxiety is not proof that you are broken. It might be proof that your body is reacting to someone who has never truly been safe. And maybe it's time to listen to that feeling. Not run from it, but trust it. When I began writing my story down, I noticed details I hadn't seen before. Every time I met with James, I felt peaceful and happy. We often walked in the park, talked about small dreams, sometimes just sat and watched the sunset without feeling the need to fill the silence. After each meeting, my heartbeat slowed, my breathing deepened, my mind cleared. I found myself remembering what James said with ease, perhaps because my brain was in a safe state. In contrast, meeting the other friend was like walking into a storm. I had to choose every word so I wouldn't upset them. Every comment could become a reason for them to mock or blame me. I vividly remember my heart racing, my palms sweating, and the fatigue that followed. Those feelings weren't just temporary moods. Neuroscience has shown that chronic stress can impair memory and even shrink the hippocampus, the part of the brain responsible for forming new memories. PME.ncbi.nlm.nih.gov. That explains why I started forgetting little things after those meetings with that friend. I started keeping track of my emotions after each encounter. I wrote down the things that made me laugh with James, how she cares about her family, her excitement when she shares a new book, and the warm silences. I also recorded the times I found myself apologizing over and over to my other friend because they thought I misunderstood or was too sensitive. Those notes revealed a clear pattern with James. I could be myself. With the other friend, I was always on guard. Gradually, I realized I'd become the target of gaslighting, a form of psychological abuse in which the manipulator causes the victim to doubt their own memory and perception, eroding their trust in themselves. Writing things down helped me reclaim my inner voice. I stopped blaming myself for my reactions and recognized that the toxic environment was the real problem. Once I understood that, I decided to conduct a small experiment. I arranged to meet James and other positive friends more often. We joined a book club together, and I started taking part in community activities, something I'd avoided because I was always exhausted. To my surprise, my memory and concentration improved. Research has found that people with higher levels of social engagement have better cognition and a lower risk of dementia. PMC.ncbi.nlm.nih.gov. Even meeting friends or family once a week can slow memory decline. PMC.cbi.nlm.nih.gov. When I read those numbers, I felt validated. It wasn't just coincidence that I felt better. This is how the brain responds when we spend time with people who make us feel safe. I also saw that social interaction not only helps memory, but also reduces stress. A Harvard Health article explains that socializing engages all our senses. Sight, hearing, smell, requiring our brains to process as facial expressions, body language, speech, and emotion. Health, Harvard.edu. This activity strengthens connections between brain cells and creates new ones and has been shown to help lower stress hormones and bring the body out of fight or flight mode. Health, Harvard.edu. I felt that clearly after our laughter-filled meetings. My mind lightened and I slept more deeply. If you find yourself in a similar situation, try starting with these small steps. Emotion journal. After each meeting, write down how you feel your thoughts and your body's reactions. Patterns will emerge showing you who energizes you and who drains you. 1. Ask yourself, do you apologize often for things that aren't your fault? Do you feel afraid to voice your opinions? Do you find yourself manipulated into doubting your own memory and perception? These questions can help you identify gaslighting. 2. Nurture positive relationships. Make a deliberate effort to meet those who make you feel safe. Join a club, a class, or a community group that interests you. Research indicates these activities not only bring joy, but protect your mental and cognitive health. 3. Set boundaries and seek support. If someone exhausts you, be brave enough to set boundaries or step back. This isn't selfish, it's self-care. If you find it hard, consider talking to a mental health professional. In the end, my story with James and my toxic friend is a reminder that we need to listen to the signals from our body and mind. You deserve relationships that allow you to grow and feel safe. Be courageous enough to leave toxic cycles and find your way back to friends like James, people who help you be yourself, and nurture your brain to thrive. We've covered a lot. We've talked about how the wrong friendships can pull you down and the right ones can help you grow. We've looked at the science of stress and memory, the power of real connection, and the insidious nature of gaslighting. But at the end of the day, no one is perfect. Sometimes we're the friend who needs to do better. Sometimes we have to let go of relationships that hurt us. What matters is that we learn, we make space for healing, and we choose relationships that reflect the person we want to be. As you think about the people in your life, ask yourself, do you have more supportive friends or toxic ones? Have you ever had to walk away from a friendship for your own well-being? And if you identified with either role today as the friend who uplifts or the one who drains, what small step can you take to change? If this topic resonates with you, let us know in the comments. We read every story, and we're preparing more content on healthy relationships and emotional healing in our playlist, so feel free to explore and share what's on your heart. Thank you for watching. If this video brought you clarity or comfort, please like it and subscribe to High Day Psych for more psychology-based insights. Your voice matters, and your healing journey starts with listening to it.